What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And our team since 2020 has reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. We're broadcasting live on Saturday, May 17th. And late in the afternoon in Toronto, overcast day. We've had up and down weather this week. Some days sunny and nice, other days cloudy and rainy, a little bit of this. But as I said, spring is here because there's dandelions on my front lawn. That's a true indicator of spring being in session. We are here, 5 o'clock, a little bit past 5 o'clock Eastern time. Do you know what time it is? It's prime time with Aisha and LaLa, and we have Aisha K. Staggers here.
Hey,
what's going on?
Oh boy, I am so tired.
Tired of what?
I'm tired of the chaos.
Okay. All right.
Exhausting. And you know what though? I realize that's the point. And so I am taking, I've made this post on Blue Sky to remind people to do what Debbie Allen told Whitley to do on Different World: relax, relate, release.
3 hours.
Yes.
3 hours.
I've been trying to do that more myself because I don't know if other people are realizing this is what this tiresome, this worryiness, all this stuff is the same thing that we felt for 4 years when he was president the first time. And now it's worse because even while there's chaos, everything is up in the air.
All right. Unfortunately, LaLa is not with us this week, but we want everyone to say a prayer for LaLa because she has not been feeling well over the last 2 weeks. She actually has lost her voice. So that makes her no good for this program, though I love her facial expression. She's one of those people who can speak with her face. But you know what? Guess who we got in the house? Check out the glasses. Ha ha! Dr. Tachi, we can't hear you. You got to mute.
I'm unmuted myself now. I was automatically muted. So.
Where we get those? I actually saw them last night on Mediascope. Where did you get those glasses from?
Where did I get them from? That's a good question. Probably from my regular sunglasses at Fashion Glasses Place.
Okay.
Yes.
How you keeping, Dr. Tachi?
Good. How are you all, my dear Aisha and my dear Dr. Vibe?
We're doing fine. Fine. How are things going with the I was going to say Metascope, but IndieSoup Media?
Oh, both.
Okay. All right.
Both are going well. Things are really good. And I don't know if the last time I was on, it's been a while since I've been on, but since then I got a fellowship. I'm part of this business cohort. It's called the Fundable Founders Learning Lab, and it is a program that is started by Pharrell Williams. So I actually, and this is for founders specifically in the state of Florida. So I've been part of that, and it's been phenomenal. You be careful what you ask for when it comes to business and success, because it will come rushing at you. And I've met so many people that have been so helpful. So,
wow. And how many weeks is the program?
It's 10 weeks. So we just finished the second week.
And see, I hear about that program all the time on Sirius XM Urban View. I always hear the ad for it.
Okay, you're one of these rich people that has Sirius XM. Good for you. Good for you.
Well, you know what? Our local radio isn't doing what it does.
Mm,
So, it's all gone corporate when it used to be mom and pop. And so I can't.
And it's interesting. I just last night talked about on Mediascope, talked about the fact that more people are turning back to terrestrial radio from subscription and streaming because there's streaming fatigue. So this is interesting that you actually are like, I got to do streaming.
Well, yeah, because I want to hear different things, different perspectives. Sometimes I want to just hear music and that's it. And like music from a certain period. So I like going to like the 90s station or Groove or even now it's Smokey's Motown, that station. I like going there. But like on our local station, I know this. I know at 9:00 every morning they're gonna play a Beyonce song. Everyone without fail, and it's almost always the same one. So it's like, and I know that whoever has Clear Channel or whatever it is, they are getting this. They're hearing the same thing I'm hearing in Florida, just on their local affiliate. The only things, and that's I used to do radio, are when they have to do the station calls. Those are the only things when they have to do the call letter stuff and say this is who you're listening to, the station you're at, and read a local ad, and that's it. That's all you get. And so I miss getting because my dad used to be a DJ, right? But I miss that era when they actually used to talk to you or do things like my dad used to do, like a Black History Trivia Challenge. My mom would actually find the questions and stuff for him. But those kinds of things used to get. And then there used to be this Black talk show called The Electric Drum that would come on Sundays. And it was really in-depth things about things happening in our local community, with regard to Black people. And you don't get that anymore. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Dr. Tachi, why don't you introduce yourself to the people who don't know you? Who doesn't? But there may be one or two who don't know you.
There's folks who don't know me, so I'm always happy to introduce myself. My name is Tachi, or Dr. Tachi. I'm a media professor, a filmmaker, a media content producer. I'm also a journalist. I have a show that I've been doing for 10 years now called Mediascope, all things media, tech, and pop culture with a side of fun and foolishness. And I recently, last year, started a new network of independent content made by independent content creators for people who like independent stuff called IndieSoup Media.
And you're forgetting at least one other thing about it.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, we will soon hopefully hit 30,000 subscribers. We are now at 27.8. I haven't looked today, but somewhere around 27,800 subscribers.
In how long?
It's been just over a year.
Thank you. You always forget that. I always have to remind you about that.
Well, because you know why? Because I think it's great and it is important, but what's more important is the connection and the community that we've started to form. So, that's the actual number is secondary, in my opinion.
Well,
and we're on it.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. But the thing is, though, we have to champion the wins and achievements where we can. And as I always say, only 4% of all YouTube channels have over 10,000 subscribers.
You are correct. So fine, I shall herald it more, sir.
Okay. We are looking forward to another epic conversation. So we're going to go on a break. This is where you can get a hold of Dr. Tachi the best way. At Instagram at dr_Tachi, TACHI. And when we come back from the break, it's been 2 weeks since the show's been on. There's nothing been going on in the last 2 weeks. We will be back. We just hang out. So we're going to be back Good morning, everyone. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. Mr. Wayne Harris, what's going on, my brother?
Let's go. Happy New Year, Dr. Vibe and the family. If you have investments in the United States, good for you, because you just make money on the exchange. People are going to spend money they don't have to impress people they don't like. This is looking at the tax code and the tax regime and maximizing it in your favor.
There we go. Morning Vibe, Monday and Friday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Pacific on wherever you're watching this, basically. That's where we get down to. Let's get down to some homework. Girlfriends Chat with Aisha, LaLa, and Jill Jones. You can catch. That's actually still on Patreon, but it's now changed over to Substack.
Yeah, we still need more followers so we can post videos, but Lala's going to be doing some live things there too.
Love that. Love that. Also, Primetime Saturday store. There's the link there. Also, join Primetime Saturday Discord group. Email me dr.vibe at the dr.vibeshow.com or click on the link, the Discord link. Subscribe to my channel. I don't got 29,000 subscribers. I got a paltry 1,809. So if you want to get to 1,810, which would be much appreciated, if you're up to it, subscribe to the Dr. Vibes on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, follow it on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Advertise your business, product, or service anywhere that I am online. Email me dr.vibe at the dr.vibeshow.com. And finally, but not last, IndieSoup Media. That's where you can catch it on YouTube, and that's where the website is. And we'll get to some comments. There's a lot of people putting in comments already. Well, one person especially. Jen Meyer says, hello, everyone.
Hey.
Roddy Lot is busy. OMG. Respected LaLa, please get well. No, we love you. So if you don't know who that is, family, that was Busy, who was a producer for a number of months here. Jen Meyer says, Dr. Tachi.
Hey.
Busy says, see who we have here. He also says, respected Dr. Tachi. That's the way Busy is, by the way. Respected Dr. We're so excited to see you here. She also says, Doctor, the Lord is your strength on your fellowship. You're up for the task. You got this. And she also says, it's important to flaunt. You see, I'm not the only one to say that. And she says, it's a pride to 27,000 plus this in just a year. Let's celebrate it. Thank you. And she also so Busy is respected Aisha. You're the best mama. I
tried. Motherhood has motherhooded.
Okay.
I'm glad there was just one.
Okay. Well, let's go. And Dr. Tachi may not know about this story. We put it up, but I know she can relate to it.
Yep.
The fire this time on the burning of the Nottoway.
Dr. Tachi, I thought we had to go here. I know she's aware of it. You know why? Because in the lower 48, Dr. Vibe, it is taken on a whole.
Okay, go ahead.
Y'all, the wedding planners, they are so upset. They don't know what they're gonna do.
Oh.
Okay, give some context. A lot of people may not know about this, so go ahead, ladies.
Nottoway is a plantation. Where is it, Dr. Tachi?
Why am I thinking
out too.
I don't know why I'm thinking Tennessee, but I know I'm wrong.
Louisiana.
Yes. Okay.
It's Louisiana. Okay.
It's very good that this is. I'm glad this was the thing because
it could be exactly White Castle, Louisiana. So continue on.
Okay. So this plantation is a site where people have a lot of, they still have a lot of weddings and things there. But this plantation has the legacy of every plantation still standing post-Civil War America. It was built on the backs of people who were in bondage, and chattel slavery was horrific. There were horrific things happened in those halls, in those bedrooms, in the slave quarters on those properties. Those trees weren't even, they didn't even escape the evils and the horrors of this time period. But yet and still, white people have accepted these places as monuments, part of their heritage and their history, but they don't want to face the ugly part of it. They mysticize it into something that's glorious, the old South, where women were sitting on the veranda sipping mint juleps while the men would go sit and smoke. mind you, somebody's being whipped in the back, a little girl's being raped by the man who's sitting there smoking a pipe. People are being starved, they're being mistreated, and they're being forced to be somebody's property with no rights. They're not even deemed human, because at the time this was founded, the Three-Fifths Compromise haven't even happened. So this is the legacy of the antebellum South. And this plantation here, like I said, hosts things. Now, mind you, there's another plantation in Louisiana called the Whitney Plantation, which is one that has a totally different history in terms of how they share and tell the story. They actually are dedicated and committed to telling the truths and the ugliness of this period of time. I've been to the Whitney, and it is a very sobering. You get there, you feel like you're on hallowed grounds, because you know what happened to people here. I've seen on the plantation, the Whitney, when I went there, they have a whole section of just the babies that died under 2. So, so these are things that we don't talk about. But mind you, Trump cut funding to the Whitney because they won't change how they talk about racism. This one probably still gets public funding, but it's burned down now. And the discussion on social media it's aggravating, it's disgusting, but even people, and I think that even people who find themselves or call themselves liberal or consider themselves Democrats or voted for Kamala Harris are still struggling to come to grips with how ugly this is. They're making excuses. I've seen it. I actually was embroiled in it today with someone. And it's just, it's very telling that it burns at this time that we're in America, where we're trying to go back. People are trying to literally take us back to those times. I know we're going to talk later about this proposed TV show for people to compete for citizenship. They did that kind of stuff on plantations for the amusement of those enslavers, those rapists, those people. Those kinds of things were done for their amusement, with the promise of nothing. So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I think it has a lot of, the legacy of just this period of America is going to be something that you'll see in a thread that will carry throughout the rest of our conversations tonight.
Dr. Tachi.
Yes, it's to the point you just made. Maybe there's a reason why some of us are not interested in watching Squid Game, because it's a real life Squid Game that represents a real life Squid Game. But all I have to say is this, and of course, whenever these types of things happen, I watch the reaction on social media. I look at the comments. Some people make stupid comments, so I try to skip over those. But there are some things that are really telling. And from the comments, people are tired. So all I saw was gifs of the waiting to exhale, was Bernadette burning the car. And I mean, it was like really like, and then people like, oh, well, what's for lunch?
Yeah.
Because it's at this point, it's a non-factor for us.
Right.
It does not matter. And let me go into LaLa space a little bit, since she knows real estate. This type of behavior, etc., had repercussions for modern day. Obviously, we know in the ways we know, but the fact that something is called a master bedroom, and the fact that now when realtors go out and show things, it's no longer called a master bedroom. It's either called a primary bedroom or a main bedroom, because of the history of what happened there. And so, real estate has really tried to divorce itself from that ugly history. And there are things we don't even necessarily think about. I never thought about that before, or why it was called such. And so there are so many things that are legacies of what happened there. And so all I can also say is the ancestors at the bottom of Lake Lanier have punished them well. Yeah. And this is not the only one that's going to happen. And it's interesting somebody was talking about this yesterday at a gathering for the funders lab that I was at, that sometimes karma comes very quickly and swiftly. And so, and it wasn't even in relationship to this, but it does. It always comes back around. You cannot continue a legacy of hate and think that hatred will burn things down, even without our doing. So that doesn't mean don't do anything, but I'm saying that you don't, at some point, it comes back around. And so I don't care that it burnt down. The fact is, you've burned and pillaged and destroyed generations of individuals because, and that, as Aisha said, is just a representation. It's just a microcosm of the entire system of enslavement. So I'm sorry, good riddance. I could care less, because you continue to make money off of this through public, through government funding, but also through people are having events there. So you keep making money off of hatred and bigotry and suffering. So good riddance.
Well, here's the other thing though for me, and it's not even about the burning of it. The thing that clicked for me, and I don't think it clicked for them, is that I sit here and I see a lot of white liberals, white Dems talk about how did Kamala Harris lose? How did she lose? We've been saying the whole time, it's the misogynoir. It's the misogynoir. And this happens and they still don't get it. They don't get it. And that for me is the part when people want to say, how does racism continue to fester? It's because those people that I was just speaking of don't get it. And because they don't get it, they might not outwardly be racist, but there's that fine line between understanding and what you think you understand. And they haven't crossed the line to true understanding yet. And they are there, but they can't bring themselves to go there. And part of the reason they can't bring themselves to go there is because white supremacy affects everyone that is here, no matter if you don't have to be a raving racist to have been impacted by white supremacy. It's in our textbooks, it's in our commercials, our TV ads, our games. I mean, for the longest time, think about it. It's even in the news. Think about it. How long it took for there to be a Black national news person. So when you see all of these things, again, that is this part of the system that further emphasizes and perpetuates the myth that white is the standard. And I think the thing that they don't realize, and I've had to say it very clearly to people, particularly on Blue Sky, that when we talk about these big social overarching things, our institutions, when we talk about our laws, when we talk about our rights as people, the white is silent.
I could add to that. There is something very different about being non-racist and being anti-racist.
Yes.
They're two different things. So you may not very well be racist yourself. You may be trying very hard to fight those things in yourself on an individual level, but that's different from actually taking action to break down the structures and institutions that impose such racism. So you can say you're not racist, but did you go to a wedding at this place? Did you go visit this? So that's part of this as well. And you may not think it's part of it, but it is. It absolutely is, that you view your sense of non-racism or being non-racist as an individual thing and not part of the system of racism. So that's another problem.
And that has to do, when I did my master's thesis, one of the things I had to make a fine difference, a very fine point of making the difference between Afrocentric values and Eurocentric values, and the issue of community and the collective is one of those things that is not part of the Eurocentric value system. They very much stress the individual. So that's why when you hear something say, well, the administration does this and this to Donald Trump, he says, well, I don't know. I didn't do it. Well, yeah, you did. You are the government. You are the government. He's like, "No, I'm not the government, I'm the president." The government, he sees it as something different. And so that's the same thing. And we collectively, as Black people and other marginalized people, we don't get the opportunity to even do that, even though we see ourselves as part of the collective. We also don't get to be individuals, because if someone does something who looks like us, we're not treated as an individual. We're treated as part of a collective group. So they all think one Black person commits a crime, so we're all criminals, right? That's the way. And so someone can see me or Dr. Tachi, educated women, the first thing they're going to think of, oh, they must not have a job, they must be on welfare, and they must not have education, and they're lazy, and this and that. So those are the kinds of things that not only are they rooted in that time period, they are rooted in our institutions, our foundations, everything that we know and we live through, and the laws and rules we follow in this society are built on that premise.
Absolutely. And really quickly, it even seeps into like you said, no one is exempt from this, because you can see this also in the behavior of our own.
Right.
What you were saying was making me think of something. Now, the person ended up being my friend, later, but I see the type of background that she came from, living in the South, living with educated parents. And so in grad school, I temped. Listen, every year up until I moved, the temp company that I was with, Friends and Company, they sent me a birthday card every year, because if they asked me to go somewhere, I'm like, sure. I was like their favorite, and they always had work when I lived in DC. So while I was in the when I was in the master's program, I temped. So I ended up temping at the World Bank. One of the places at the World Bank, which is how I ended up getting a job at the World Bank. I used to work for the World Bank. So I ended up temping there, and the person who I was temping under was Black. But she, even though she was Black, she had internalized racism. And so she already had in her head what type of person temps. Oh, this is their full-time job. I have I'm probably higher than such and such, until we were talking one day and I'm like, yeah, I have to register for graduation. And she said, you have a degree? I said, I'm about to get my master's. So I surpassed what she thought. And we ended up being friends afterwards, but I saw, as I was hanging out with her, as I got to know her family as well, that she had internalized racism. So all of this doesn't just affect the racist, it's also those who were victimized by such racism. You internalize the very definitions they use to define you, because somehow you need to rise above. And that's what you did. So I'm like, you don't know, my dear. I see what you're doing.
Yeah. and like, you're right. Even in our own culture, my master's thesis was on perceived female attractiveness and mate selection, dating preferences of Black males, college males, 18 to 25.
Wow.
And I actually designed my own female attractiveness study based on based on another scale. And so even how people when they had to pick out a picture of the females, there were standards that they had that they didn't necessarily reflect on the assessment, but in the qualitative discussion and comments they were making as they were doing it in the conversation we had was very different. And that it was a bit better than the previous studies from the 80s and 70s of upwardly mobile Black men who get wives who have an aesthetic that looks closer to white, right? But what I actually did find was, in this particular generation, they were Xers. They, having been born in the 70s, out of this Black Power movement, even though their comments were otherwise, what they marked on this scale, the closer their value system was to Afrocentric, the more Afrocentric or wider the net they cast over the beauty they found in Black women. The closer their value system was to Eurocentric, the more narrow it was. And basically you could do a paper bag test where these men were concerned.
Okay. Got some comments here. I am friend Matt says that's wild to hear that they would have weddings there. That would be like having a birthday party at a residential school.
Well, you know what? Someone said, this woman said that would be like having a wedding at a lynching. And they used to have picnics at lynchings. They used to have the lynchings. They used to post posters, and it would be a family event to lynch a couple of Black people, have a barbecue and everything. And at the end of the barbecue, you know what they did? They would sometimes take the bodies and throw the bodies on the fire. So this is the kind of gross, disgusting treatment of people that we're talking about occurred on this plantation. And if you can't get that, and you think, well, that was so many years ago, the building is still there, the slave quarters are still there, the trees, those same trees that were there back then are there now.
All right. I am Fred Matt also asks, so is the Whitney Plantation more of a museum? Was the Nottingham Plantation not?
Yes.
To which question?
The Nottingham Plantation was being treated as an event space. The Whitney is a museum.
Okay. Why do you feel this hasn't got more media coverage?
Because white people don't want to talk about it. It's an uncomfortable conversation. Here's the thing, because when you have to go back and do your family tree, we can only go back so far, right? We know that when we go back, we're going back to a plantation. They don't. And then they're very shocked when they find out that they do. And people have to come to grips with those feelings. But here's the other thing about the past. And I had to say this to a white woman today on Blue Sky, is that the guilt that white people feel isn't about what happened in the past. It's that they see what happened in the past as it manifests itself in the present, and that they are part of it. They are part of the ecosystem of white supremacy, and they don't want to be part of it.
Yeah, and it's 100%, Aisha. There's also the thing that because they don't want to be a part of it, because it stems from not wanting to not only own up to the terrible things they did, but recognize that they are or could be terrible people. Right. And so how do you do that? You erase everything that comes, as if, and this is the stupidity in this, as if you remove a monument, if you take a book off of the shelf, as if it didn't happen. It's like, I'm like, have you not heard of the internet? You know that once something is there, it never goes away.
Or you know that with AI, they're trying to alter a lot of those pictures in our archives of things so that they don't look how they really were. Like all of those signs that you see, when you look at those signs after Brown and they started to segregate, to integrate segregated schools, the signs now no longer have the N word as it was written. Let me tell you, my mother has a whole book on the brutal history of those things. And I've seen pictures online of those. Negro was not the word they were using.
Exactly. And so this is why it's so important for us to be archivists, for us to keep family history, because there are no families that are in, shall we say, have been in this country for centuries, that are of African descent, that were not affected by this. So even though traditionally we may be more of oral historians, we've got to start to be more photojournalists and photo archivists, which we are actually. But what we have to do is we need to appoint people in our families. Like it did something to me when I was with some sorority sisters, and the older ones, they were telling stories about things, and I'll never forget one of them was saying how, so she went to school in, was it 1970, right? And they were desegregating like a high school. And she told us a story of how they were riding around on this bus for like a long time. And it was because there was trouble at the school. So, and they just kept talking about I'm like, well, who's writing this down? And they were
Yeah.
like, well, it's not. No, we've got to start to write these things down.
I can tell you where you can find them, or so at least the newspaper clips. When I was a grad student at Fisk University, I was doing some research on the sit-in movement there that John Lewis was part of. And I went into the special collections and the archives on the third floor. There were at the time, this was 96. This room was full of, those old school filing cabinets that they used to have, 90s and 80s and stuff. And there were so many of them. And there was a folder for every town that had a school was desegregated and there was some kind of riot or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was so, whoever the librarian was, and I believe it was the librarian she's a descendant of one of the Fisk Jubilee singers. And I mean, meticulously kept all of the clippings. And I was just like, I sat there amongst, and I looked and I'm like, there's got to be like 20 of these file cabinets just on this section. And I was just like stunned. So I know our HBCU libraries are keeping tracks of these local histories, but you know what? Here's the problem. And here's the problem with the thing with the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress, you know what else the Library of Congress has? It has the slave narratives, the recordings and the transcriptions of the slave narratives. And a lot of those people were over 100 when they were being interviewed. And, these things aren't going to be publicly available anymore because this man doesn't want us to know our history. And Dr. Tachi, the other thing I think that people really struggle with is that I don't think that people can parse out the fact that even though they might think or feel something is wrong, and justifiably wrong, and that they'll speak to it, they'll stand out about it, they'll be a keyboard warrior about it. When the rubber meets the road, and they, like me today, saw some Latino guy being pulled over by six police Range Rovers, okay? 6 for one person searching the car. They're not going to be the person to park on the side and make sure the cops see them with their camera phone taking the video. I was, but I didn't. I saw them driving by, and I'm sure not all those people were racist, but not one of them stopped. And that is the kind of thing that they will have to face in themselves, and it's going to. There's a cognitive dissonance that I think that they are blissfully happy being in.
Yeah. It's not our job to do that type of thing anymore. And the fact that you did is wonderful.
Right.
But it's not our job. And I think part of the problem is it's been expected to be our job to police the bad behavior of these individuals, to show them, to record, to speak out against it, to march against. That has always been our job. And now that we've said, well, you're on your own, we're not doing this anymore. People
Let me tell you, the only
know.
reason I did it, the only reason I did it is because I saw that was this morning. Yesterday, I saw the same thing happen. And these guys, there was 5 of them, and they pulled out hands up. They were told to have their hands behind their heads. And there was a trooper and 4 unmarked cars. And that scares me. That scares me to death, because this is where we are right now, right? This is where we are right now. And
no, absolutely. And I'm not faulting you at all.
No, but this is where we are right now, right? Where it's that kind of fear. And we're going to talk about the immigration thing, but the thing that the humanity and the tears and things that people are seeing, they're like, this child separation is horrible. They're seeing the parents being ripped from the kids. And I had to say to someone, I said, this is what America does. What do you mean? Right. This is not what we do, but this is what we did during slavery. This is what happened on those plantations, the ripping apart of people from their families.
I am Matt. I am friend Matt says, I don't know much about law, but it doesn't seem very legal to be able to just change historical events like that. And then Busy says, it's so sad, a building since 1890 that used to be for brutal human trafficking, later turned to a resort and listed as a historical place in 1980. What comes to mind is the fire manipulated?
I think that was all the ancestors. Just like that scene from Tales from the Hood, when the ancestors, the formerly enslaved, peeled off the wall and went after that guy. Yeah, that's what I think. But to Matt's question, yeah, it is. You know why? Because it's considered free speech. The only thing you can't do is libel or slander someone.
Wow. Okay. All right. Since we slid into it, the U.S. Supreme Court defends birthright citizenship challenged by Trump. Sorry, I said that 47 administration. And there's a whole bunch of stories around birthright citizenship that we can roll all into this. So who wants to start? Were you surprised the Supreme Court pushed it back?
Well, let's see where the birthright citizenship came from. And that's why I wanted to start the conversation about the plantation. That was the amendment that made the formerly enslaved, our ancestors, citizens of this country and gave them their rights, period, right? And what Donald Trump's people are arguing in court, but see, mind you, it doesn't just say Black people. It says persons. That's what it is, persons. Donald Trump, his people are argued to the Supreme Court was that it didn't mean the people that we're doing. That was for Black people. But if they knew the law in 1898, under the Chinese, they had the Chinese, that Chinese Act.
Chinese Exclusion Act.
Chinese Exclusion Act. A Chinese man sued the government under birthright citizenship and won. So it is precedent. And so that's what he was arguing today. But they didn't want to challenge on the merits of that argument. They want the Supreme Court to look at whether or not the president has the authority to overstep what the court says he has to do. So they're pulling a bait and switch here. They're saying it's about the birthright citizenship, but we don't want you to rule on that because it is against the law. We want you to rule on whether or not the president has the authority to have to listen to what that judge said about obeying birthright citizenship.
But isn't that one and the same? He doesn't.
Right. And that's why with the exception of the two hoes on the court, Alito and Thomas, the bought and paid for ones.
Absolutely.
That's why the other ones were kind of like, what do you put this at one point? Alito couldn't even defend him. He started saying, well, never mind. He just said, never mind, because he couldn't even defend it.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, I think that they will probably send this back to the judge and ask the judge if there are, could it be narrowed or not, and the judge would have to say no, this will be abused, and that'll be the end of it. And you know what? He'll claim victory, though. He will.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're not given any timelines. They just haven't
by
given
the end of the
timelines.
session. No, by the end of the session. If they heard it this week, they're going to decide by the end of the session. All of the when I was listening to someone who clerked for the court before on TV, they were saying that all the things that they are having now are things that they are going to decide by June.
Will 47 get his way?
No, that is literally in the Constitution.
Not that matters to him, but no.
Right. No, he won't get. He won't get. They're going to rule against him. The challenge is going to be stopping him. And he might actually listen to the court. But the thing that he'll do is he'll declare victory by saying, "Well, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is not coming back, and anyone that we already sent is not coming back."
Exactly. So this is the thing, and this is the thing that he does. We know that 99.9%, forget that, 100% of the things that he does is illegal. 100% of the things that has been happening is illegal. The point is, if you don't respect the letter of the law, it almost doesn't matter, because he goes ahead and does what he wants anyway. Oh, well, we can't bring them back. Why not? Right. So they'll come up with, they'll do something that's illegal and then come up with all sorts of excuses. And then when they have to go in front of a committee or go in front of Congress, the people that have become the fall people for this just simply become disrespectful and say, well, you're not listening to what I'm saying. And nothing gets done. So you're
Right.
trying to impose lawfulness against the lawless.
Right. And here's the basic thing that he's trying to undo. That the lower court, the judge issued a nationwide injunction. She said, wait a second, what you're trying to do here in my district has implications for everybody across the country. So I'm going to stop you from doing this, period. This is a nationwide injunction. You can't do this anywhere. And the court, the argument they made is like, well, if we lift the injunction, basically what your argument is that everyone whose right was violated in the country would have to get an attorney and file their own case while the administration just moves around. They said it's like playing whack-a-mole, you know?
Yeah.
Because even in those cases where people get an attorney, file a case, and bring it, they know they're going to lose. So they're not going to appeal it. They're just going to go on and find somebody else who can't get an attorney or doesn't want to come out the shadows and get an attorney or fears that they won't be represented. And they'll just get that person and then they'll move and they'll keep doing it. And so this nationwide injunction has to hold. And that is the thing that the Supreme Court is going to decide.
Okay, got a question from Matt saying, isn't birthright citizenship protected in the American Constitution? I'm from Canada, so I'm not familiar with the American laws.
Neither are most Americans.
It
Anyway.
is. Right. Yes, I'll say that. You probably, look, after you said that, you know more than most Americans. Now, here's the thing. Yes, it does say that. But if he doesn't follow the Constitution, that's why we have these two other bodies, the legislative body and the judicial body, that if he doesn't follow the Constitution, they are supposed to rein him in, hold control. They hold oversight over each other. So there's the executive, legislative, and the judicial branch. The problem we have right now is that our legislative branch is completely impotent. They will not do anything that he does not want them to do. Period. If he tells them, yeah, I don't want you to even, don't hold me accountable, they're not going to hold him accountable. And then they have tied the hamstrings of Democrats by saying that Democrats cannot, they made a rule because the party that's in charge gets to make, they get to vote on the rules. Everybody votes on the rules, but the party that's in charge has the majority. So they're going to pass it. And they passed the rule that said that Democrats cannot raise these points of inquiry over anything the administration is doing. And so that what does that mean? That means that if Democrats want to have these official meetings and things to have these conversations about the breaking of the law and the breaking of the Constitution, Republicans said the rule says that they can't. Now, what they can do is have informal things, but they have no voting power. And the Republicans, their job is to just give Donald Trump the leeway. Their job is to fall back and let him do what he's going to do. And then you would have an independent Department of Justice that would also look at some of these things, but we don't. He picked the attorney, and she is his attorney, not the attorney for the country, even though that's how it's supposed to be.
And, you also have to realize the level of cowardice amongst the GOP, because I'm not even going to sit here and say that first of all, they can't stand him. Okay. The ones that are MAGites or MAGAites or whatever they call themselves, they go along with whatever he says. But there are a fair number of Republicans that are not, quote, MAGA Republicans. They're just too chicken to get together and do anything about it. But this has always been the MO. In my opinion, and in fact, they've always been party above republic. Right. So they will stick together to the detriment of the republic, and it doesn't matter. So even if there are ones on that side, people on that side that disagree, they won't do anything to upset that balance of power because they are fearful and chicken and scared.
Right. And, Donald Trump says he's doing this kind of thing to root out the gangs in the country, when the biggest gang that we have is running the administration.
Yes, the cartel that's running the administration.
Exactly.
And this is very,
it's called MAGA. It's a cartel.
Exactly, the MAGA cartel. So you look at this administration, and it's very interesting because there's this whole thought process and behavior of how these things don't apply to them. Well, both the president and the vice president have spouses that are not from here, that
Exactly.
were not born here.
Exactly.
You know, you're talking about them too, right? And
Oh, you're talking about
little
their
children.
kids. You're talking about all Trump's kids except for Tiffany and,
Exactly.
and JD Vance's kids. That would birthright citizenship would fall under there. But here's the thing: we're debating birthright citizenship of people who actually went through the process, went through the legal process, right? Or people, and even people who were literally just born in this country.
Yes.
Born in this country, right? Or people, and Amy Coney Barrett is going to be a wild card because remember, she has adopted children. Birthright citizenship, it extends to the naturalized people who are naturalized too.
Right.
So that would include her kids.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
So we have this issue here with the birthright citizenship piece, but then they want to, people who are already here, who are citizens here, we're getting our rights taken away, but then they want to turn around and bring in the South Afrikaners.
You mean the colonizers who happen to come from?
Oh, the colonizers who are going to get food assistance, housing assistance, health care, jobs. But the same people who are in the government right now talking about, oh, we've got to rein in our spending, so we got to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP, but they're going to give those things to people who aren't even citizens.
And the thing is, this is the interest. This is the really rich thing. When you come to this country, there are people who came to this country, for example, as refugees because they were fleeing persecution and they wanted something better, and they were 100% willing to be better for the betterment of this country and do whatever they could for that. You've got people like my parents, of course, they came here for school. Okay, so they already came with the mindset of bettering themselves, but also bettering the world, because they weren't just doing it for themselves, right? So they came with that mindset. So that whole birthright said, that's me too. I'm born in this country, but my parents were not. But I can tell you one thing: they've contributed more than a lot of people have, and contributed than these lowest common denominator South African colonizers. What are they? They're worthless. Those individuals who came here have nothing to add to this society at all. It's just him, Cheeto Satan, making a point by bringing them here. They're useless. They could do nothing here. What are they?
And let's be clear, and the thing about, oh, it's genocide. That, no, it's not. They are 7% of the population of South African people in South Africa, and they own and control 76% of the land.
Exactly. And let's not forget, I'm not going to let this go.
And let's not talk about apartheid. Let's not forget about apartheid.
Exactly. They have no business in South Africa to begin with. Let's start that. That's not your ancestral homeland. That does not mean that you should not live someplace at your ancestral homeland, but you sure as heck should not by force be owning something that is not your ancestral homeland.
And then telling those people they can't even access it.
Exactly.
Remember, they had the same level of segregation during apartheid.
Exactly.
It is. It's not lost on me that all this stuff is happening all at the same time, because they are trying to flood the zone with this issue, this fundamental issue. And I'm sorry, the thing that we should all be worried about is that by the time that they're done, none of us will be citizens.
Listen, okay, well, you probably don't want non-citizens to pay taxes either, do you? So
well, they already told our state that we're getting even less than what we get back, considering that, and then they're asking for us to put in more.
Okay, let's move on to our next conversation topic. The conservatives balked 47's agenda bill from advancing in major setback for GOP leaders. He couldn't get they're not going to put his bill through.
Well, for two reasons, but for two reasons. You have those people. Well, the Senate already said it's dead on arrival because the Medicaid cuts. They can't survive another. A lot of them have elections coming up. They can't survive an election. There are some House Republicans who, for them to gut Medicaid in their, it'll close the only hospital, right? And they get that because their constituents are complaining. But then there is a cohort that the cohort that did vote with the Democrats to not pass the bill. The reason that they did, they're I don't know what the acronym SALT is for, but basically these are the people who think that the bill doesn't cut enough for Medicaid and SNAP. And those are the conservatives that blocked his bill. So they voted with Democrats because Democrats voted no, because there are too many cuts to these safety nets and these programs. The Republicans, no, because you don't cut enough of those safety nets and programs. So will it get passed? I don't think it will. I think that they're going to continuous resolution it to 2026 until the midterm.
Wow. But how does this, if it cuts the Medicaid, is that cutting Medicaid for a lot of the people who voted for 47?
Yeah. But guess what? A lot of them are okay with it and they knew, because it makes no sense to us, but they would rather have nothing if it meant the Blacks and the Mexicans and the LGBTQ people even had access to it. Not had it, but had access to it.
Wow.
And so that is the issue. But a lot of them people are starting to speak out too, because here's the thing. What they forget. Regular people hear Medicaid. People forget that Medicaid helps take care of a lot of children on disability. Children with disabilities, for whom, if their parents have private insurance, the insurer might say, no, we're not covering that kid because they have a pre-existing condition, or your insurance is going to be higher because that child has these pre-existing conditions, or we're not going to cover those conditions, but we'll cover everything that happens from here on out, but we're not going to cover anything that's connected to what they're already dealing with, even though something might happen years out. So those people are covered under Medicaid. You have a lot of homeless veterans who go to the VA. They're getting their benefits cut. And then you're talking about people on SNAP. Do you know a good portion of our military families get SNAP?
Yes, I do know that.
Yes,
I do that.
They're going to be cut. And let's be clear, 56% of the people on Medicaid are white. And I think that if we spoke and see, Dems have to be strategic about those things. They probably don't want to say that because they're like, oh, well, no, you need to say that, because that is the part that matters to them. Tell them 56% of the people on Medicaid are white. That's all you need to say.
Okay, so just to update, SALT, the acronym SALT, it's called the state and local tax. Deduction is an itemized deduction taxpayers can use when they file their annual tax returns. A SALT deduction can provide a little tax relief to individuals who don't mind doing some extra work when they prepare their returns.
But here's the problem with that, right? You have in a lot of Republican states and jurisdictions, they don't have state or local taxes. So those people are going to get nothing. Delaware does not have a state tax.
So is this bill really just to benefit the rich and cut the legs out of the poor?
Absolutely, because here's the thing, right? We got a president who wants to accept a $400 million jet that would take $1 billion.
You want to go with that?
No. I'm making a larger point. That's going to take $1 billion to retrofit so that it is safe to use as Air Force One. $1 billion. Guess where they can do with that money? Fund Medicaid completely. Where are they going to get that $1 billion from? Where's it going to come from?
It's from gutting all these programs.
Exactly.
It is, and by the way, it's not just gutting programs, it's money that we've spent to go into these programs.
Yeah.
You know, it's very interesting how government in general tends to think that, oh, this is government money. No, idiot. This is
It's
the money that
taxpayer
we
money.
put in. You
Mhm.
didn't, the government doesn't just exist. It exists because of taxes. When people say, oh, government grants, where do you think it's coming from? It's funded by the people. So it's not just that this is some arbitrary money that exists from the money tree in the sky that they fund the government with.
Right.
It's our money.
Yep.
So this
And
is
here's the
what's
thing.
happening.
You know what? You want to talk about cuts to spending? You're about to waste $50 million on a military parade for a man who thinks he's king in a democracy for his birthday. I don't want to celebrate his birthday. As far as I'm concerned, I hope that on his birthday he has the worst birthday ever. Maybe he'll get the newest virus that's coming out and just be sick for a while and shut up. But we should not be forced to pay for that. Guess what? He just made almost $3 billion on his daggone crypto mess. Spend your own money.
Exactly. And then when it comes to that type of thing, you know, it's our money, but we also have to look at, they're doing this in the city of DC. So this is a local government that you're expecting to foot the bill, at least partially, for this debauchery.
Mm-hmm. And he's giving the mayor no choice. And the reason why people want to know why that mayor has been showing up when he has to do things in DC and she has to show up, why she did the thing with the Black Lives Matter thing, because there's one thing that people don't realize. For example, the president can't come to my town or Dr. Tachi's town and tell the mayor and tell our governor he's going to take over this city. Can't do that. But DC is the exception. The president can take over DC. Bill Clinton did in 93. So that is something that she's trying not to have happen. And I don't fault her for that.
Absolutely, because there's a bigger agenda. There's a bigger problem here if something like that does happen.
Yeah. And if y'all don't know, DC is Chocolate City.
Exactly. I mean, it's not as chocolate as it used to be,
right,
but it's still very much chocolate. And, you know, I lived there for 9 years, and the separation between church and state or government and city is very slight. Most of the people that work there live for the federal government in some way, shape, or form. So it is a local town or local city that is also federal. And it's also
Howard, right?
Sorry. Yeah, I went to Howard.
So did my sister. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, there's almost, it's really an interesting place to live and to see, because there's that intersection of the federal government being there, but it's also, you know, you've also got local government politics, and it's also a city, you know, that it's also a huge research center. So it's the intersection of so many things. So it's not just very easy to say, oh, well, we're not going to do it. Not when he's right there. So like I said, it's really easy to be from afar and say what you wouldn't do, but you can't when he is in your town and lives in your town.
And this is one of the reasons why DC does need to become the 51st
state.
Because if they had that kind, they'd also have that kind of congressional representation. There are legitimate reasons why, as long as Republicans are in Congress, there will not be a Puerto Rico or DC 51st and 52nd state, because those states are unbridledly Democratic. Those states would be unbridledly Democratic, and Republicans would never win another race.
Exactly.
Federal race. And so that's that. But you know, this funding bill nonsense, we're going to be in the same hole we were with Trump. Because remember, if you recall, the last time they passed that first funding bill, but after that they did nothing but continuing resolutions to the end of his until the end of his term, except for 2020 when COVID happened. That's when they went back and did another full budget bill, because they had to put in that money. But remember, before, it was always a continuing resolution. And so that's where we are.
Okay. I know you probably don't want to talk about it much, but I do want to get either of your takes on 47's trip to the Middle East.
Propaganda. It was personal propaganda. It was personal propaganda, and for his own pockets, he was not doing the business of the country.
Yeah, this is rubbish. All we have to do is look at what the discourse is, because unlike other people, he has no filter. So what he says is what he does.
Yeah.
So if he says something, be for sure it's going to happen. I don't know if these stupid philandering fools who followed him think, oh, he's not. Have you seen what has happened when he speaks? He generally says what he does, and he's not. He doesn't think at a high level, so anything goes.
But that's not the trip you should be asking us about. You should be asking us about the trip where Putin played him.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were supposed to have that conversation about Ukraine, and Putin didn't show up.
Exactly.
Putin said he was coming. If Trump came, Trump went, and Putin was a no-show.
And how many deals did the 47 family get out of that trip? To not only the airplane, but
he has properties that are going up in every one of the countries that he visited. There was no discussion of things happening for America there. He might have said it, but no, everything there is for when they were saying America, he was talking about himself. He believes he is America.
100%. Exactly. That is it. There's a book that I have by Stephen Colbert. You know, for a long time on the Stephen Colbert show, he played like a conservative, and he really is not. But
it was a satire.
Yeah, it's satire. So there's a book called I Am America and So Can You. This is exactly what he was talking about. And Stephen Colbert, I don't think you knew you were writing that into existence, but that's exactly, he thinks he is America. So anything that he does is for personal gain for him and his family, but for real for him. Okay. Right. It's personal gain. So the aircraft was one thing, but then, you know, let's listen to what he says when he talked, as I was saying, the whole thing with Gaza. And saying, "Oh, this would make a great result." You think he's playing? Property. You think he's playing?
No,
he's not.
Why do you think? Look, here's the thing. Why do you think he's not doing anything? He's not saying anything. Guess what? They cut. There's no funding going to the people of Gaza because one of the other reasons for getting rid of U.S. aid was to starve out those people.
Yes.
Period. U.S. aid was going there. It's to starve out those people. Why the stuff in why cut the aid to Africa and those countries in Africa? To starve out the people so that Americans can go in and take the resources, because China's already there. Russia's got their fingers going in.
Right.
America wants to compete with China and Russia in Africa.
Right. Well, see, and this is why you have the Ibrahim Traores who are rising up and saying, bye-bye, France. No, you won't. And again, that's very scary for not Americans, but him. Because if you're trying to compete on that front and you don't have access to resources, because by the way, these countries that are coming in, what resources do you have? Nothing. They're cold countries that shale, good for you. You've got shale, you've got rocks. That's about all you have. Any resource comes from the countries of the quote unquote global South.
Right.
All of this technology, it's because of cobalt, which is why you delight in any struggle in the Congo. That's why you delight in those things. And so what we need, and we also have stupid African leaders who, as long as you can, give them a whole pot of jollof rice, they're fine with you coming in and doing whatever your will is. So Traore is like part of this new crop of young Africans who are like, we're tired. There's no reason we should have as many resources and be as resourceful as we are, and the masses don't have.
Right.
No reason at all.
Right. Because the thinking globally in terms of how history is taught about Africa is that Africans are poor because they're poor. They're poor because of colonization and people coming in and robbing and raping the continent. and
Exactly. And then
taking things and never putting anything back, or investing in the people who they want to get those things for them.
exactly. And then exacerbating relations, bad relations between different groups to keep them fighting so that they don't have to do very much of anything. I
Kinda
mean,
like
again,
America.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and I'm speaking firsthand here because obviously a lot of people didn't know that there was a civil war in Nigeria in the 60s and 70s. That was the whole reason my parents couldn't even go back, because a war broke out. So, and that is the West's way of keeping them colonized, this neo-colonization, so that if they're fighting, all we need to do is put in power the people we want, and we will have resources for days. This is why I'm so torn when I see like, oh, the gilded streets in Paris and all of this, courtesy of Senegal, Sierra Leone, name any country of the global South. They are golden because they fleeced the gold from us.
Right.
Sorry,
And you know, as much as Trump likes gold, Trump loves gold. He loves gold. You see how he outfitted the Oval Office? The only thing that's missing is a set of rims.
Exactly. All you have to do is look at his towers in New York and everything, the golden escalators, and that
It's
that
so gaudy.
to him,
It's so 80s.
It's very 80s, but it speaks to the opulence that he wants to maintain.
Yeah, it's giving gold. It's giving gold and black lame from the 80s.
I just want to read a little bit of this article before we go to our next conversation piece. This is from the Business Insider. I think it was a few days before 47 went to the Middle East. He's visiting 3 countries on his Middle East trip. The 47 organization recently made business deals with all of them.
Well, you know, but here's the thing. Who's going to tell him it's against the law? Because it is.
Yeah. So
the president is not supposed to be doing their own personal business on state trips. First of all, the president is not supposed to be doing any personal business while they are the president.
No. Yep. And so if we look at members of Congress, for example, not that everybody adheres to this, but I'll take Jasmine. Why can't I remember?
Crockett.
I was about to call her Jasmine Shirley. I'm like, no, that's somebody I know. Jasmine Crockett. And the fact that she had a firm before she ran, she had to close the firm down. Yep. You cannot run a personal business while you're a public servant. And the president is a public servant. So why, pray tell, are you on the public's dime? Because you can't just get on a Southwest flight 1456 and go over to the Middle East and then no. You are using government public money because you're on Air Force One. You're using public time because that's the time you're supposed to be using to govern, that you are now using to cut deals for yourself. Then you should have stayed a private citizen.
Don't forget to trust the Secret Service.
Okay.
Remember, he's going to have extra Secret Service because he staged an assassination attempt.
Okay, let me just go quick. 47 is visiting the Middle East as 47 branded project is spanning the region. The 47 organization is involved in new developments in UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. 47 has visited all 3 countries on this trip. And he said his family business has expanding interests in all 3 countries. The 47 organization, run by the president's eldest sons, Eric and Donald Jr., has recently announced it's involved in a number of new projects in 3 countries, 2 of which were unveiled just in the last few weeks. The planned developments will add to the dozens of 47 branded properties around the world, including residential towers, commercial hotels, private golf clubs, and public golf courses in North America, Europe, and Asia. But a major focus of the company right now appears to be the oil-rich, largely authoritarian-run countries in the Middle East, while 47 no longer directly in charge of the 47 organization. His family's business deals have raised a number of ethical concerns and potential conflicts of interest during both his presidential terms.
I mean, the thing of it is that he will shine his people on by telling them, oh yeah, I'm going to bring the oil here. Gas prices are going to go to $1 again, and blah 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 blah. But the point is, for him to be an oil baron, because the bottom line is Donald Trump has never had actual real wealth. Even his real estate stuff was never actually his. It was always other people's properties that he borrowed and leased his name to, leased his likeness to, leased the myth of himself to.
Exactly.
This here will give him that oil business piece will give him actual wealth that he could then use to manipulate the rest of the world.
Exactly. And because that's what he's after. That's what he's after.
He doesn't just want to be president of the United States. He wants to be God.
No, he wants to get a Nobel Peace Prize.
No, he wants to be God. No, because he wants to control everything, everyone, all the moving parts, whether there are trees, whether there's sun, whether he wants to control everything. He wants to control the universe. And the problem is that there are a lot of people who are hoping that he will take them along.
But see, this is, if you look at the history of the way he does things, if he doesn't pay people when they do work for him, if he throws people under the bus, and I will say this again, with Target Corporation and everybody, he threw you under the bus.
Sure did.
He said, well, no, that wasn't me. I'm making a whole wax museum of blacks. You're the one that he will throw you under the bus. Why do you, and there is example after example after example that he is in it for his own personal gain and not for you. Why do you think he will bring you along for the ride? Where's your evidence that he will bring you along for the ride? But this is the same reason that people don't like science, because science shows the evidence of what this is. That's why you don't believe in science, or you don't want it, because you don't want to see the truth. There is no evidence that he would do anything for you. You just have the hope and belief that he
here's the other part too, is when you sit and you think about these damn executive orders that he keeps putting through, not one of them is really legal, because he keeps overstepping the president's actual authority into things that he can, like, for example, the whole DEI stuff. Every business, every organization, every law firm, everyone who capitulated is fundamentally stupid. You know why? Because he's threatening to withhold money from you. He can't do any of that unilaterally. Any money that anybody gets in this country for anything from the federal government has to come through an act of Congress, period. So he can do his little tiny man executive orders, but they only have teeth if people are willing to fold. And I know Paul Weiss, that law firm, is like, just, they regret, and they signed a contract. And see, that's the part they should, as lawyers, they should have known not to sign a contract. And the thing for them is that, guess what? All the other people that challenged him in court, all the other law firms, they're winning. He's got them by the ball. They're losing big, huge.
I don't feel sorry for them. I don't feel sorry for them
at all. They were stupid. And anyone else from here on in, any higher education institution, so what? Look, Harvard is worried about their government funding, but you know what Harvard also found this week? A art piece or something that they had that they thought was old enough. Turns out it was an original something from the 1300s. Harvard's gonna be okay with money.
And they already have such a large endowment because of alumni. See, the thing is, it's the reliance on the government funding. So it's like you have money, right? But you keep paying for things on credit. It's like that.
Yeah, and it's also like it's like rich people. It's the way rich people think, which rich people don't think like people who work for their money like we do, and have to think about the spending and things like that. Rich people, their mindset is, if somebody else is going to pay for it, cool.
They use other people's money.
They use other people's money. They don't have to use their own money.
All right, let's go on with two other comments here. Busy says the visit ought to have been embarked by the Minister of State, not the president, as at last count, if I'm not mistaken. And Matt says people don't like to be wrong, and they'll do anything to make sure that never happens, even if it hurts them in the end. And if you want to see a very interesting interview, I saw it this week on the Daily Beast. Michael Wolff who did a biography and knows 47 very well and has insight, said basically anyone who feels that they have 47's ear will eventually get pushed away.
One quick thing to what Busy said about the Minister of State. We call it the Secretary of State.
Secretary of State.
Typically, yes, they make some visits to do those kinds of business deals. A president will go if there's considered a state visit where the leader of a country wants to meet with the president. So that does happen. And guess what? He should not have done this for this simple fact. Did anybody see the statement from the 9/11 families?
No.
The 9/11 families are the fact that he went over there. They're pissed. Remember, Saudi Arabia had money in 9/11. That, and they're pissed about the fact that he would accept a plane from these people who could be linked to 9/11, but also then there's this piece about Jamal Khashoggi. He sat with the man who ordered the killing of a U.S. journalist, the killing and the dismemberment of a U.S. journalist.
He don't care.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't care.
He does not.
He doesn't care.
It's all, remember, it gets back to what
The chaos.
David Frum said. The only two things that 47 cares about: himself and money.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's it. Simple. Himself and money. Let's move on to the next conversation piece. What will 47's terrorists really mean for Hollywood? Because a few weeks ago, 47 said, maybe we should put tariffs on films that are not made in America. Dr. Tachi, I want you to lead with this one.
I have a simple answer for that.
Yeah, well, go ahead with your simple answer, and then I'll go with my diatribe. Go ahead.
Look, I'm on my Lawrence O'Donnell thing today. It will mean nothing because he won't do it.
Dr. Tachi?
So for those people who don't know, he announced a tariff of 100% for films that are made outside of the country. So something that's interesting is we're starting to see Hollywood respond to that with different things. Netflix actually just broke ground on a new production facility in New Jersey.
Yes.
And it is going to be something to the effect of like 330 acres. No, sorry, it's 290 acres. So just underneath the Tyler Perry studio. So this would be another major studio on the East Coast. What does that do? It facilitates productions here, which only works if you're doing things that there's only so many things that you can replicate on a soundstage. Right. Only so many things that you can replicate with AI and have it be believable, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it has made Hollywood take a second look. He has had a vendetta for Hollywood and Hollywood types for a while because that he wants to be one of them. Right. Very simple. He wants to be one of them. The Apprentice as a show was not enough. He wants to, if he could have had a way to dominate that industry, that's what he would have done. Of course, he would have gone on to try and do more domination to this extent, but that's what he really wanted. But he's never really been accepted amongst that crowd because of his debauchery. Right. And the treatment, and people know who he is, right? Let's not forget that part of the industry. Yeah, Hollywood is California, but it's also New York, and New Yorkers know who he is.
Yeah, everybody in this area of the country knows who he is.
If you're an East Coaster, Northeasterner, let's say, you already know the MO.
If you live in the tri-state area like I do, you got exactly. That. Look, you got that
forever. We tried to warn you all. We tried. Nobody listened.
He killed Atlantic City.
Yes, absolutely. So he is now,
look, Connecticut is now the casino capital of this area because he killed Atlantic City.
Atlantic City was it at one point, but all the bad deals and bad dealing because he's a terrible business person. but a great, he has people around him that prop him up, and he talks a good game to people who don't know. So this is why you think he has more money than he actually has, that he has more influence than he actually has. So going back to this thing, he's had it out for Hollywood for a long time, even as simple as they've destroyed his star. They vandalized his star to high heaven.
That was his star that you were showing in the picture.
Yeah, that was the star. They vandalized it. Those small things, even though it seems like whatever, those things bother him.
It does, yeah.
It gets under his skin, right at the back of his scruffy, ashy neck.
Let me tell you something.
Right under there. And it because he also has this desire to be adored and loved, and people don't.
Right.
And so if you don't, I'm going to force you to, or punish you for not.
Or make it the law that you have to.
Exactly. Or make a law that you have to. So all of this is punishment to Hollywood for not adoring him the way he wants. We think it's all very, it's very simple. He's egotistical. He has a need to be adored and loved. If you don't, he'll punish you. This is an
administration hell-bent on revenge. Every executive order is about revenge on someone, some group of people. That's all it is. Everything is about revenge at this point. He's trying to take revenge on everybody. The only reason he walked back the China things and this came out was because his constituents, MAGA, was upset about it. MAGA,
because they had businesses.
When Laura Loomer said that she couldn't support him on this, next day he's changing it. But the thing about Hollywood, Dr. Tachi, you're so right about the accepting him. I bet if you were to ask Trump if he could be president or be himself in the 80s, just after he did Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, which would he rather have?
He wants that.
Go back to that.
He wants that.
He would rather go back to that. Because that was a time when that really was his time where people outside of the tri-state area they just knew he was rich. And he had this, when they go to New York City and they tour, they see his tower with his name on it. And then they saw him in a few movies, and that was it. They saw his house and all these other properties that he owned, which were just buildings mostly, and outfitted for Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. But he wants that. He wants that. He wants to go back to that time that the New York Post called him the world's most eligible bachelor.
Exactly, because he's certainly not now, and it's questionable if he ever was. But he also realizes that people adore money, that people have high respect and adoration for those who have money. Yeah. So for him, let's be honest, he doesn't want this job of president. He doesn't want it. It's nice to be able to say, I am president. That gives him a thing, but to actually do the work of it, he doesn't want to do that. That's not what it's about.
If I was him, I would rather go back to that period too, just because if I had to look in the mirror every day at what he has to look at now compared to what he had to look at then. Okay, off topic. Have you noticed how drastically he has changed his face?
Yes.
Hey, okay. Just to interrupt, if you will look at that interview that Mike Wolf done, he's on Ozempic.
It's not just Ozempic. I'm talking about Ozempic. Ozempic doesn't do that to your face, because the Ozempic is recent because everybody learned his weight. But the face thing, I thought he was in great medical shape according to his. Listen, well now look, I got my answer as to why cheeseburgers and fried chicken and steaks haven't done their job. He takes cholesterol medication.
Yes.
I need
to eat McDonald's every day.
Do you know how upset I am that my hopes and dreams of a clogged artery are dashed? He's not sticking with the program. The plan was.
Are you okay, Dr. Tachi?
Hamburger every day.
You didn't hear that, did you, Dr. Tachi?
Oh Lord!
We had a plan here. Me and his heart had an agreement. Me and his heart had an agreement, and it's not working. But aside from that, I mean. It's the pulling back of the skin, the hair. Well, we know those are hair plugs. But even the shape of his eyes, even the shape of his eyes is very different. It's very different.
Absolutely.
His nose, his skin. His pores are so humongous. I mean, I can literally poke a finger in one. There's
Absolutely. But it's all part of the illusion, right?
Right.
It's all part of this illusion of staying as he is,
Mhm.
not aging.
Right. That's why MAGA
Um,
does all the AIs of him with this built
exactly.
chest and what it's like, dude. If that's how you really look, take your shirt off.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
if that's how you really look, you wouldn't be afraid to show it. As a matter of fact, you'd be like my neighbor out mowing the lawn every time with his shirt off.
Exactly, exactly. With his funny, ill-fitting suits. But back to the point of this. So there are low levels of production, and that has been happening in LA and other places for decades. But that's more a symptom of the way that the studio system is in charge and the way they choose to compensate and do things, more than, oh, we're not doing, because all we have to do is look at, I'll take the state of Florida, for example. Now they're starting to return to look at some things, but because they had no foresight, wouldn't you want to have production in a place that has this much sunshine in the year? The weather, for the most part, is always good, right? I mean, save for hurricane season, but there's not a hurricane every year, right? So this is the perfect production place. In the past few years, so of course we've got news production. Of course we've got most of the production here is Spanish language now and commercials. But before that, we had 3 big productions, 2 of which for the Glades and Burn Notice. How many years has it been since?
I love the Glades.
I did too. And I love Burn Notice. They
Me
were
too.
both really great shows. Now, both of those shows really led to lots of local work. You had actors, background actors, even though the main actors were from LA, all the background actors and things, a lot of them were from here. Crew was working here, even though some came from LA. But then
he was there too.
Yeah, exactly. But then what happened is the state stopped giving tax incentives for productions. So why would I be here now if I'm not going? So that's when a lot of that production moved to Georgia, because Georgia still had the foresight to know this is the play. Lots of people were doing stuff in Georgia. And so a lot of people that were acting and stuff, they moved up to Georgia. They left this high and dry because the state of Florida did not have the foresight to know. Now they're starting to look and try to roll things back, but it's like the damage is done. We are not yo-yos. I'm not going to move back here.
Your governor didn't help with Disney. Disney moved all of its production back to California.
Yeah, exactly. Because remember, though, there was this, and MAGA had something to do with that too, because this DeClantis, who is in charge here, had a vendetta against Disney. So there was that back and forth thing between him and Disney, where now was the reality is, were they going to close Disney World? And no, but they're like, well, we're not going to put as much into it as because we've got Disneyland in California.
If you're a Britney Spears or Justin Timberlake wannabe, you're out of luck, because that's where they all got. That's where they were filming Mickey Mouse Club and all that stuff.
They're all like Florida kids that were from here or whatever, and they were all in Orlando, because God knows there's really nothing else in Orlando except for Disney and theme parks.
The guy that was doing all the boy bands, the one that went to jail, the guy who was doing all the boy bands in the late 90s, he was headquartered in Orlando. And everybody was coming to Florida to audition for him. He had every no-name boy band group in that late 90s period, most of them forgettable, but they were going there. That was a hot spot for that.
Exactly.
97, 98, 99, 2000. That was a hot spot.
Exactly. So the structure of the entertainment industry has more to do with why they're suffering downfall, and the fact that they need to make so much profit, or they feel the need to make so much profit. Do you really have to make this much profit? No, but you also have investors, and that's why they're beholden to the investors. So it's more so the structure of the entertainment industry that is starting to do it in than any of this other stuff, but it's not going to help with this. And so let me just give a thing. Ava DuVernay, as we know, the filmmaker, said It was thoughtless and lacked any business foundation, any knowledge of how the industry works. There are people in our industry who've stepped up to say this would do more harm than good. It's not about tariffs. It's about tax incentives. That's what drives our industry. Hopefully more light can be shed on that, and there could be a reconsideration of this with proposals that actually get people back to work and don't take away from an industry that's already struggling. So this is another hit, because let's look at what's happened in the industry. We had COVID, and people are still, we're still not back to full production after that. We then had the strikes, both the writer strikes and the SAG-AFTRA strikes, right? So there was nothing going on production-wise then. So you're reeling off of two major events that we're still not back at full production from. And lo and behold, here comes this, a 100% tariff on anything that is produced outside of this country, which is a lot. You're even talking about Vancouver. So when you stopped having as many tax incentives from the state of California, this is when the film boards of, and anytime I'm at NAB, and you know this, Aisha, whenever you go to NAB, you see all those film boards are there on the show floor, right? Nevada, the state of Nevada, it's right next door. Vancouver, British Columbia. So you're also, Toronto is another place. So you're also affecting those production who choose to go north of the border for that with this. So this has far-reaching implications. So you think you are punishing others, but you actually are punishing yourself as well.
And it's not just about punishing Hollywood too, because you just mentioned Toronto. The other side, he's also trying to punish Canada, right? Because a lot of our productions get made there because it's less expensive than California.
And it mimics
people are filming in Canada, they're filming in Atlanta.
All right. Regina says 100% he does not want the job. He wants to amass wealth as a leader. P.S. He has lost 20 pounds on Ozempic and is on blood thinners because of very high cholesterol. And then Regina says, I'm mad because I didn't get a reminder on YouTube for the show tonight, so I'm so late. Don't worry. That's what instant replay is all about. Let's go to another conversation piece.
Wait a second. He's supposed to do I'm glad you mentioned that, Regina, because guess what? He's supposed to be, he talked about his quote unquote friend taking the fat shot. So he put an executive order to make it cheaper, which the executive order, it holds no weight. I mean, to make it cheaper. I mean, he tells them they can if they want to, basically.
Oh my God.
Well, that's what his drug thing means. It just says, well, you can if you want to. I'm asking you to do this on your own volition.
Yes, he said if you want to. If you
want to. Biden was like, no, you're gonna lower it to this for this.
100%.
If you want to still do business with this country.
All right. College professors are turning to ChatGPT to generate course materials. One student noticed and asked for a refund. Dr. Tachi, you are a professor. Go for it.
Yeah. And I know that I thought this would be interesting because I know that Aisha also is in this world. And so I talked about this also last night on Mediascope and wanted to know people's thoughts. So I feel two ways about this.
Me too.
The person that I think her name was Ella, I can't remember, but the student who brought the allegation, she complained to the school about this and then asked for a refund for this class after she discovered that the professor was using it because sloppily he left part of the prompts inside the thing. Erase the prompts. So he left part of the prompts there and then went through and looked at some of the images that he had posted as well. They were AI generated because you could see missing fingers and things, and then things were misspelled on the, any wording.
Which is what AI does when you just do it generate. It automatically does that.
Yeah, exactly. So she was upset because she was saying, well, they're telling us not to use AI, but he is. So she went and she complained and said she wanted the $8,000 back for that class. No backseat, sis, because the school was like, no, we're not giving you that back. Because so this is what I think. I think there needs to be very clear parameters and rules when using AI for both students and for faculty, right? I think this is something that we've been dealing with for a while. As soon as I heard that AI ChatGPT became more of a public thing, I said, okay, I already know. But somebody who understands how students write, and you're looking at their work cumulatively, not just one paper, but you're looking at how they respond to other classmates in the writing and stuff. When you're like, you didn't write this. Plus, we also use turnitin.com, which allows you, it shows you this is 100% taken from this source, or this is taken from here. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing, so do I think that students should use it? I think it's absolutely fine to use as a tool, as a starting point to see, where do I go with this paper? What are some directions? Can you help me outline this? And then you do the work. There, I have no problem with doing that. Conversely, for professors, I think that you have to be careful of how much AI generated stuff you are using. Am I against using it? No, because I use it myself. However, I know how to write. So I'll put in some things and I'll put it through. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Thank you. Because you're one person, you can't think about everything. And this is also another thing that we have to consider. Not every professor is a full-time tenure track professor that's making a salary. There are an awful lot of adjuncts and part-time faculty. So this may be a second or third job. So what you're telling me is you want them on a second or third job for the pittance. Most universities don't pay you anything there are few universities that you're to be teaching a class for this entire 16-week class. You're getting $1,500 for 16 weeks for sitting there and that's not my case, thank God, but for sitting there and listening to their concerns, running classes, and in some cases, you're not even doing it online. You're physically going to the university and you're making pittance. So you're asking them to put in all this work and not get assistance from AI when they can. The devil is a liar. Yes, I'm 100% for them using AI, but don't make AI do all the work. And that goes on both ends. Aisha, I know you're trying to get in. Go ahead.
Let me tell you something. AI can be a useful tool. It's also very time consuming if you don't know how to ask it the right prompts. So the time that you spend working with AI to ask you the right prompts for just one thing, you could have done the writing yourself and the research and writing yourself. So for me, if you're a writer like me, like Dr. Tachi, you find that part of it unhelpful. Okay. And I have to be abusive sometimes with my ChatGPT as well as my Meta AI, because I'll tell it to do something, like write something, and it'll pull up something that from like several chats ago. I'm like, what are you talking about? What is wrong with you? So there is that thing that gets in there. Also remember that it trains on other people's writing. Now, unless you're a published person, Dr. Tachi, myself, I can tell AI to train itself. I had told my AI, train yourself on the writing of Aisha K. Staggers, because it can. But here's the thing. I agree with you, Dr. Tachi. I think it is a useful tool, and every point you made is salient. I think what people have to realize is that there are so many AI tools out there. If you put that information into all, you're going to get different things, which is the beauty of this kind of thing. You know, I know my AIs get sick of me because I give like these long screeds of things that I want. Like, I want to write, I want to do this and this, right? I just want to kick me out of an outline. But if you do across all of them, you get different outlines, and that actually makes you have more choices of a starting point, or things to consider that you wouldn't have ordinarily. I would use it more as a kind of a research guided tool. It's to help you organize your thoughts, organize your ideas. But the other part of it too is that you really don't want it to do research for you, because it doesn't always get the facts right. That's another point. And I'm like Dr. Tachi, I'm like you can tell what your students wrote and what they didn't write. Back in 2009, I had a student who I knew the girl couldn't write. I had her for 2 semesters. I knew she couldn't write. She told me she had difficulty writing. She's a student of special needs. She's a student who had special needs. And so she had difficulty reading. She could not read well. So she used like software to read the text and stuff for her, right? Okay, fine. So I knew what her writing was like, 2 semesters. Her final paper for her to graduate, she had to do for me. And I'm reading this paper and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is very well written. I know she didn't write this, but then I'm reading all these other things. I'm like, wait a second, this looks so familiar. I know this work. So I just took the first sentence, copied, pasted it into my search engine, and it kicked back my own paper to me that I wrote in grad school 10 years prior.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
She didn't even change any of the words.
Wow.
See, if you're going to do that, can you at least do the research to make sure it's not your professor's paper? I mean, sheesh. And you know, here's the thing too. It catches, so Turnitin.com, you know, will catch it, and it uses AI to catch these things. So I had a student who 100% of her paper it said it was plagiarized. I said, this doesn't sound right, because this student, she's not lazy and she's a decent writer. So what is this? So what I discovered was, she turned in this paper before. So I was like, you know, that's not necessary. So I'm like, I asked her, did you take this class before? And she said, yes. So I said, okay, so what you have to do is you have to discuss with me when you want to use a paper that you've written before, because it needs to be updated. You can't do it as it is, because now some things may be outdated. I don't have a problem with you using work that you've done before, but we have to work to update it. So it also would catch things that if you have submitted things before. So there's also those cases as well. But this is only something that is going to become more and more pervasive on the higher education front, provided higher education survives as it is.
Right. Well, here's the other part of it, right? If he's going to attack higher education the way he's going to attack it, eventually professors and faculty of character are going to leave. And the people that you're going to have are the people who buy their degrees from degree mills, teaching people how to be scholarly using AI.
Now, see, and it's already happening. It's already, I can't remember, you probably remember, but it just happened. 2 faculty members from, what university was that? Just left.
Yeah.
And they moved abroad, right? So
one of them's from my backyard. Tim Snyder left from Yale.
Yes. From Yale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's still teaching at Yale, but he's in Canada.
In Canada, exactly. So they're going to, but this is going to happen. Professors that are worth their weight in gold or platinum or silver, they're going to look for other opportunities at, 1, institutions that are not going to kowtow to a fascist government, and 2, places where academic freedom still holds, and 3, places where the students respect the academic process. Because this is not to say that this is rampant, but here's another end of this.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand when you're paying for something that you expect a certain amount of
expertise,
whatever for your money, that you expect a certain amount of product or service for your money. The problem is that universities have steadily been treating students like customers instead of students. And what do customers do? They complain over every little thing, which is why I can't stand that thought process. You're not going to come and complain like this is the store. This is not Publix. You can't return and get your money back. So many students have not learned the art of how to negotiate these types of things. So instead of going to the professor and finding out your first thing is, let me see the manager.
Yeah.
Karening. Okay.
Well, the other part,
there's this academic Karening that's happening.
But the other part too, Dr. Tachi, that is so discouraging and disheartening about all this, and this will be my last comment on it, is really how when we went to school, we didn't have all of the outside distractions that these kids have. When we went to college, you would go to the library. You go to the library everybody's up. Like, I remember if you go to HBCU library, first of all, that's like the party spot. That's a party spot. The middle floor, especially for some reason, is like the meeting spot. But everybody would be up there in the library. But you might have been there with your girls and everything. Everybody had all their stuff on the table spread out, but everybody was doing their work, studying, helping each other. There were books open. Nobody had a laptop back in 96, 97. We had desktops, but nobody could afford a laptop then. So we'd go to the computer lab and hang out and do all our work in a computer lab, talking to each other over the computers. But the thing is that there was still that center focus on the work.
Yeah.
There was the only distractions were you and your homegirls like making jokes at each other or asking if somebody has a highlighter or something. But the focus was the work, and you could get it done and focus. And I tell my daughter that now. My daughter's in grad school. I'm like, if you put your phone away for just a half hour and you'll knock that out quickly, as opposed to having it there and it's taking you 3 hours, because every 5 minutes there's an alert coming through on your phone. And that's the challenge that we have right now in higher education, is that this fast fashion version of data and information and technology that we have at our fingertips, and people have this addiction to it, and it's like they're so compelled. It's like they feel like if they can't find their phone, or if their phone's not around them, it's like they feel anxious, anxiety, all of that. All those feelings happen. Where if you're of a generation prior to that, you know how to go back into it. It's getting harder. It's getting harder because we're all becoming more dependent on it, but you also know how to not do it. These kids don't know how to not do it, because whenever they were children or something, no one ever let them just sit and play quietly. There's always a TV on. There's always a game, a tablet, or something like that. I think my daughter's like one of the last people in her, of her generation to have, had a mom who just, put on the Hairspray, the musical soundtrack, and let her just dress up and be a little girl and play dress up and dance and make up dances and stuff and reenact the whole play. That kind of stuff these kids don't get anymore. And so even to the point that you're talking about with the writing and the reliance on AI, Dr. Tachi, because they don't get that kind of interaction, that kind of way of imagining things and using their brain and expanding their creativity, they struggle as writers.
Absolutely. And I mean, there are so many societal issues and problems that have led up to this. And part of this is because, all right, so this generation, depending, their parents could be boomers all the way to down to millennials. So there, it could be anybody. So depending on who your parents were really determines. So like with us, okay, so most of my classmates or whatever, their parents were boomers. My parents were silent generation, so they really didn't have time for the nonsense. They're like, oh no. So our parents were like grandparents, so they didn't have time for the nonsense. So that, on top of the fact of being Nigerian, I grew up very differently than some of my classmates did. Some of the rubbish that their parents went, that wasn't happening in our. So it really depends too on the parenting. And then so when you get younger parents, for example, like Gen X and millennials that are parenting some of not Gen X, millennials and Gen X, that are parenting Gen Z. You've got this. Well, we are trying to make up for the childhoods that we had. So we're trying to make it easier for you, but you've eased them right out of common sense, because now they don't know how to do anything.
Right.
Playing, as you said, this constructive play is constructive. It's not for no reason. It fuels imagination, and that helps your thought process and critical thinking skills. There's a reason for play, right? It fosters your adulthood. And so because you are devoid of that, because you spent all day on your Xbox or whatever have you, then you come into a classroom and you don't know what to do, and you feel compelled to use these cheating techniques to get things done because you don't know any other way. So I think what's done is done, and it is what it is. This is all we can do as instructors, as professors, is to guide them. Listen, I know it's difficult, but it's not that hard. People have been doing this. This is how you can do it. Let me show you how we can do this, and make yourself a part of the equation, and not to, well, you better figure this out. Make yourself a part of the equation. And that way they feel like, all right, I actually do have an ally. Somebody is interested in my success.
Yeah. And the best way to like even reduce the technology stuff is it's modeling. They've got to see their parents put it down for a while to do it. Or guess what? Here's a novel idea. How about don't be afraid to tell your kids no? Tell your kids no, there will be no phones or no tablets at the dinner table. We're going to sit here as a family and have a conversation. No, because everybody came to dinner, sat at the table and ate dinner when it was dinner time. And I'll tell you, one of the things I loved as a kid about reading books and things, if I didn't like where I was or what was going on in real life, I could go there. And that's why I also became a good writer, because if I didn't like what was going on, I could write my own world.
Yes.
But I also loved going and exploring our backyard. Our backyard was like my own little science camp. I mean, me and my sisters, we would always play Little House on the Prairie, because you know how they would run down the hill. We have a hill in our backyard, so we would always run down the hill like they did. And then we had this little crevice thing, it's like a crater, but it would fill up with water when it would rain. So it would be like a lake. So it looked like the lake by the house at the Little House on the Prairie. So we would literally play Little House on the Prairie all day. And then we'd go like play with the bugs, like climb trees and stuff like that. But those kinds of things kids aren't doing anymore. The kinds of things that not only make you healthier because you're outside your activity, but they also stretch your brain, stretch your imagination. The kids don't have that sense of wonder anymore, because the wonder of making connections with different things. That's how they don't get that, because guess what? If they want to know how something works,
type it in.
Okay. But they don't try to figure it out. One of the things I used to like to do, take apart I know my parents hated this, but I'd take apart my radios and my cassette players and things, because I wanted to see how they would work.
Okay.
And then put them back together.
I
knew I wasn't going to get another one.
Only certain segment of the audience can relate to the cassette player thing.
No, but I knew I wasn't going to get another one, so I had better put it back the right way.
Exactly. I was one for wanting to know how things worked as well. And I think that's kind of the hallmark of like our generations, that we really wanted to know how things work. So, we were really, they talk about, Gen Xers have always grown up with technology. Well, so did everybody. A pencil is technology. So let's stop with that nonsense.
Pencil sharpener. That thing. Have you ever taken one of those apart? It's mechanical.
Yeah, exactly. But we'd always basically grown up with computer technology. Remember, people don't realize computing has been around since the 1960s. It was not widespread in a mass medium yet, but there are people who got their masters and things in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and they were using computers to figure out the statistics for it. Granted, it was with the punch cards, but it was still using a computer. So we have always grown up with computer technology, so it's not anything new. Yes. It just was not as hypertextual. Right. It just was, there was no, the Windows, the mosaics and all of that. It was DOS, but we still had, computer.
Fortran.
But the one thing I'll tell you, but see, here's the other thing too, about technology that is also very scary, is that it can also be weaponized. And we're doing that we see that happening with schools and making sure that schools have enough computers. I remember when our school first got our computer, and my reading group got to go because I was in the highest reading group, but there were only 4 of us. The rest of the kids in my class, particularly the Black kids, if they were in the lower reading group, being able to use the computer was a behavior trick. They controlled their behavior by that. And I'd get to go in there with the teacher to use it for like an hour at a time, learning all that stuff, right? These kids would get it, the rest of the kids in my class be like another 20 kids coming in, and they each get 5 minutes to sit there and basically sit there and look at the blinking cursor, and that's it. It's like that kind of thing. And I hope that we don't get to that point in how we use technology in education. But
Okay.
honestly, I think that colleges need to come up with standards with regards to AI, because the law is not going to catch up to it.
Just to jump in, the name of the student, she's from Northeastern University, was Ella Stapleton. She asked for $8,000 refund after she noticed her professor using ChatGPT generated materials. Stapleton's request was denied.
Yeah, I would deny it too.
Yeah.
Again, that was a complaint that was, I'm sure that is not the only time you noticed or whatever the case may be. And we have to look at the end product. Did you get what the intended outcome was from that class?
Right.
If it was that, and this is what, even though I'm not a big proponent of these, this is what the evaluations at the end of the class are for.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That's the way you do it. But to make a big deal of it, to talk to the news outlets about it, why? What did, and you didn't get your $8,000 back.
I mean, you can always go and rate my professors and be an idiot, like the kids who don't get the grades that they don't want to do, because I've had that happen. And I'm glad though that I've also had students say, no, she works with you. If that happened, it's because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Exactly. But see, this is part of the problem of treating students like customers instead of like people that we're trying to rear for the next millennium. It's because nobody will be alive, but it's because customers feel very confident that the customer is always right. Right. And so they behave that way when it comes to this. And then you have people. Okay, so I remember I had one time a student that didn't do what she was supposed to do. And so she complained about something. And I said, but she didn't do, it's clearly here what she's supposed to do. And she was a complainer anyway. And I remember my division director said, yeah, but she might go to the dean. I said, I'll go to the dean.
Yeah.
Is he around? I will report myself. I don't care about them. And see, that's what you have to, my students always knew she doesn't care about
whatever. I did go to the dean about the student who plagiarized my paper. And I told them and I'm like, he's like, we are so sick of her in this department. We just want her to graduate. Your class is the last one to graduate. So you can give her you can give her a D- and just pass it so she can go. And I was like, I didn't even want to fight it. I was like, you know what? This is my last class for this at this institution anyway. I just let it go. But you know what though? I'll tell you this. At this point in this article, the thing that she never explained, she talked about the materials. The thing that she didn't explain, did they know the content when they were lecturing?
Yeah.
And that is the basis upon which I think she lost her appeal. Because if the professor just gave them the ChatGPT stuff and then sat around and said, just read that and just sat back, I could see her getting her money back. I could see them all getting their money back and that person getting fired. But if they just did the notes, did put in what they needed for the syllabus and now that stuff and the materials and that, but the lecture, how robust was the lecture?
And I doubt, and again, not knowing the situation, not being in the classroom, but understanding, I doubt very high, especially at Northeastern, and Northeastern is in Boston for people who know. I doubt very highly that this professor was just sitting there and like, oh, well, read this. And what I know there was,
I know they have to do a sample lesson.
You have to do a sample lesson. You have to, they're constantly making sure, especially if you're teaching in person.
And not only that, but if they did the syllabus was approved by the department.
Exactly. And then
that's the other thing that they don't know. I think students don't realize. Professors have to submit their syllabus to the department. It has to be approved by the department too.
Exactly. But then there are some schools where if you are an adjunct, where they've got you're part of a pool of adjuncts and they already have the syllabi done.
The syllabus done for you.
So they already know.
Materials. I've had a class like that where I've come in and I was given everything.
Exactly. Yeah. They basically give you everything. I've been there. I'm like, nothing. You don't need me to come up with anything.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. You are submitting it to the department, or the department has already done it and vetted it. So you're following that. And
that might actually be the case here too, is that the department had somebody in, like an administrator or somebody, an administrative assistant or somebody, put together the materials for this course. Let's get them here, do this.
Exactly.
And if you have
may
somebody
not
28 doing that, AI is what you're going to get.
Exactly. And it could be, but the thing is, you're allowed to use AI to help with things. Again, He says you cannot, not to do the entire course. But again, I simply, knowing students, some students, like I know some students, this was just an unfounded complaint. Again, not knowing everything, but everything as we're looking at this now, I'm like, I doubt very highly that there was no other guidance besides that. And so if you're complaining about AI generated pictures, guess what? And I said this yesterday, so where I teach, you have to be very careful with what images you use. Not only do they have to be royalty free, but they want us to use Creative Commons, and Creative Commons doesn't always have everything that you need. So what's the next thing? All right, well, let me create this with AI because you're only paying me XYZ. I'm not going to go and hire a graphic artist to come up with this, but I do have a tool available that can demonstrate the concept. Here it is. Right. So I think it's fine to use it as a tool, but use it only as a tool, not to do the work for you. Right. And students, get used to the fact that AI is here. No, there's a difference here. You're trying to do all your work through AI. Yeah. That's the difference. Don't think you're on the same level as a professor who's using this to kind of supplement what they've already come up with. They didn't write a book with AI and are teaching you from it. No, that's not the case at all. So don't conflate your situation, writing entire theses and stuff using AI, with what a professor is doing, because that's not what they're doing. Yeah. As it is, I'm scared for the workforce when these kids get out of college.
All right, on that comment, we had a whole AI workforce. Regina says, agree 100%, Dr. Tachi. Besides, before ChatGPT, teachers and professors could download curriculums online from many different sites.
Exactly.
Real Django, good to see you here. Says AI worries me. There's too many knuckleheads that think AI should be running things that our society isn't ready for. Regina goes, Aisha, that is a hilarious plagiarism story. Anisha went back, I was done. And then Regina goes, ROFL. So do people know that acronym?
Rolling on the floor
laughing.
There you go. Real Django goes, oh, I'm okay. Thank you, Dr. Vibe. Good to hear. And I hope I'm doing well. Yes, I am. Regina goes, imagine all the current cheating students becoming parents and role models for plagiarism.
Well, they'll AI parenting.
All right. Real Django goes, academic Karening. LOL.
Listen, that's what it is.
Okay. Regina goes, correct. The stacks at the college library were great for focusing. We had isolated nooks with the desks in every corner, in addition to the larger tables. She also says the level of anxiety in young people blows my mind. I was a carefree airhead at their age. And then finally, Real Django goes, ha! I used to take apart things too, but I would turn to something else. LOL, transistor radios into transmitter.
Me and my friends used to get dressed in our pajamas late night. We used to get dressed in our pajamas, get all our books and backpacks, and walk to the library.
All right.
Absolutely. And the thing is too, there's because of there are online libraries. You could get resources from your local library online. So I'm the first one to say, I'm not going to the physical library. Let me get it off of this database. And, I started using databases early, but there is something about going to the physical building that spurs a spirit of academics in you, of wanting to do things. One things I used to do during grad school, because I went to grad school in DC, on Fridays I would go to the Library of Congress, and that's where I would do some research. So I know that I'm very lucky to have had that experience where not only did I have, because Howard was part of a consortium where we could go, GW, Georgetown, UDC, all the schools in DC were part of the consortium, and you could borrow from each other's libraries, but we could also get things out from the Library of Congress. You get there early enough, you make a request, and you can make copies and all of that. It's so that's why when I hear this onslaught against that, I'm like, I was very lucky to be able to have access to that.
100%.
You know, your the other thing that's good too is your state library. Every state has a state library in addition to your local public libraries. I know in Connecticut the membership is free, and then it gives you online access to a lot of the state records and things like that. And so those are cards that are very good to have, even if you're not a student. If you're just a resident of the state, it's very good to have because it gives you access to a lot of things, even access to magazines and newspapers that you can't get on your own.
And then access to experiences, because depending on where your library is, some of them even have passes that allow you into like local attractions, local parks, and things like that. Some have, yes, and some
Yale
have
does that too.
Instruments that you can also take out. Some of them also you can rent instruments with your librability card. So it's very powerful to have
a library card. Yes.
Library card.
Very much so.
That's
Regina goes, we were still using card catalogs for research in my college days.
Wow.
I was too. My undergraduate days. Yeah, they still had the Dewey Decimal System.
Okay.
These kids don't know nothing about that.
Let's stop there. Okay, ladies, you've been on for a while. We done, or do you want one more story?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, since Dr. Tachi's from Florida and we're talking about...
Listen, let me correct you. I live in Florida. I am not from Florida.
Live in Florida. Sorry, my correction. Live in Florida. Okay, Marva Johnson tapped as FAMU president despite pushback over MAGA ties.
Good night. It's been
Marva Johnson? Wait, when did Marva Johnson become MAGA?
She's MAGA. So so what has happened? This is the talk. So first of all,
my friend's daughter is at FAMU.
Yeah, Florida is the type of state that most of the residents here go to state schools. And FAMU is a state school. Part of that is because they have I forgot the name of the program where you can pay into it from the time your children are little, and then you can use that and it's tax-free. Right.
It's so like we call it it's like a 425 or something.
Yeah, it has some number.
It's got some kind of tax thing, like 425 or something.
Exactly. So then it's tax-free money that you can use to send your children to any state school. And if you use it for other schools, then I think there's some little tax on it, but not very much. So most people here go to lots of Black people here have gone to FAMU. So somebody here that has ties to FAMU. And so this has been the talk here. Everybody has, I have not been able to get away from it. They're like, my friend, my soror called me, Tachi, did you hear what happened at FAM? I'm like, I have no choice because all of you went to FAM. So what has happened is that despite Will Packer, the filmmaker, made a huge plea against it and was very vehemently against her becoming becoming the president. So apparently there were like 60 other candidates or something that were all very well qualified, but somehow she got in. Now, what we have to also look at is Florida politics as well, and the role that this has. So
that board was picked by DeSantis, wasn't it? Because it's a state school.
Exactly. This is a state school. And so this is also part of why we need to. So as I was talking last night with my soror about this, I made this point. I was like, listen, part of the reason why DeSantis and others have you all in a vice is because you all don't give back. Now, I'm not trying to put the blame on that because this is all this is a lot of HBCUs.
Yeah.
And granted, we know that the rates of HBCU graduates having the same amount of income as white graduates from other schools, we already know there. Yes, we already know that there is a disconnect there. We know it's not equivalent. But aside from that, let's put that to the side and let's pretend all things being equal. If, in fact, you do not contribute so that your school has an endowment where you can tell them to go to, there's a problem. There's a problem because we need to figure out how we can be more self-sufficient, because then you don't get people in there that are bought and paid for. Secondly, I said, all right, well, who is on the board of trustees for this university? That's another thing. The president is selected by the board of trustees, even though alumni have a say. All of this is bullocks. At the end of the day, it's the board of trustees that installs this. So out of all those 60 candidates, she rose to the top, someone who has never been led academe before. I don't even think she came out of the academic world. She's not from academia.
I know her from something else.
Right. She's not from academia. So how was this allowed? How did the board say, okay, she's the person to lead this? Number three, and everybody that I've talked to here is saying this. She's a plant.
Yeah.
That she is a maggot plant.
Yeah. I think she's there to get rid of FAMU, to start dismantling.
That's what it's about.
The state HBCUs.
Well, it says that she is a telecommunications executive with political ties to Governor Ron DeSantis.
Okay, that's how I know her name. I know her as a communications person.
Right.
I've seen her name on I've seen her name on things.
That's so she's a former regional vice president at Charter Communications and a past appointee to the Board of Governors. Has supported
Charter Communications controls a lot of our whatchamacallits here, our local radio stations back there.
And actually Charter and one other company just merged, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember who it was, but they just did a big merger, which gives them control of lots of radio stations in different markets. Yep. So what does that have to do with leading a university? Nothing.
She supported several education policies aligned with the DeSantis administration, including recent reforms that restrict DEI programs and reshape curriculum oversight.
Charter Communications is Spectrum. That's what they operate here as Spectrum. It's a cable company. That's why I knew her name.
And she has asked for a $750,000 a year salary.
Nope.
Well, but the thing of it is, I'm not going to even begrudge her that part of it, because most college presidents are making $1 million.
Yeah, that's true.
HBCU college presidents are nowhere near that.
No, you don't. Most HBCU presidents are not making 7 figures, 6 figures, and
not even high 6 figures.
Not even high 6 figures. Exactly.
A lot of them aren't even clearing 200,000.
Exactly. And running a university is a tough job. So I'm not even
for those who are qualified, it's even tougher than those who are not.
Well, she's completely unqualified. She is the epitome of I am not qualified to do this. She is the epitome of I woke up yesterday and became the president of FAMU. She is nowhere near qualified for this. So this is the dangerous thing here. If our institutions are starting to kowtow to, because this is what this is all about. There's no way in hell she should be the president of FAMU. Not with the track record that she has. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a Democrat in order to lead a university. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that your past track record should show that you are for the things that education, that higher ed holds dear. You are not. You only set foot on a campus probably to go to school. You have nothing to do with any of that. You are just a puppet to dismantle HBCUs. Right. How dare you?
I don't see how they hired someone who's never had any kind of role in education administration, or run a department in a higher education institution, because I'm just thinking about all the rules and policies and things she's gonna have to learn in order to
no. You mean the ones that she's going to follow that DeSantis tells her to do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because even the thing of it is, the things that DeSantis say, yeah, but there are things in writing that she probably won't know about and will violate. Because I also don't think this woman's going to sit here and learn everything. The first thing she's going to do is start spending their money, and that's the scary part.
Well, and this is the thing. I know that students and now alumni, whether they get back or not, I know alumni at HBCUs are very vocal when it comes to their institution because it's different for those of us that went to HBCUs. There's we know that their mission is about us, and so we hold that very dear. That doesn't mean nobody else is for their institution. I'm just saying it's different when it comes to us that are HBCU graduates.
So
So I know for
is not the focus. The endowment's not the focus. It's the students. And
it's
a lot of these,
exactly.
These institutions, like your Ivy League, like a Yale, like a Harvard, the endowment is
the endowment is and I mean, so kind of to our detriment, you know, the endowment is not the focus because then we don't have the standing to say go to hell like we should in these cases. But I know for a fact that these students and these people are committed to making her tenure there.
good.
I know this for a fact. I've been told this for a fact. They are committed to making it. Because what you won't do is come into our institutions with your painted face and pretend to be one of us, because you're not. In the words of Kendrick Lamar, they not like us. Okay, you're not like us.
Yeah, I promise. Put it this way. I promise you, there's going to be a lot of information that will not be shared with her. There are going to be a lot of moving parts that she won't know about, and things being done because I don't think the people that work there. Put it this way, the guy that was the president of whatever that college was that was trying to get on the HBCU was trying to get on Trump's parade and raising money.
Was that Jackson State?
I think so. That president right there caught hell for what he did, for what he just trying to support it. Okay, so yeah, they know. No.
So I think this is the other thing, you know, back to the part of us supporting and understanding the roadblocks that exist. We've been shown we don't have anybody but us. So we have to really take the reins when it comes to these things. That means that we have to understand what's happening with the HBCUs. I can guarantee that there are some FAM students that are very intimately involved with what's happening with the university, things in terms of legislation. But then there's some people who just come from homecoming, only want to step and stroll, only want to have the tailgate during parties, and that is there, and then get all up in arms when things happen. But you haven't been involved all along. All you want to do is step. All you want to do is stroll. All you want is the tailgate. So you can't then very well complain when these things happen, when you have not been in on what is happening from the beginning. Stop it. So you have to become more involved on all fronts. If you really care about your institution, if you care about the Rattlers like you say you do, get involved on all fronts. Go to the alumni association meeting. Are you even a part of your alumni association? I don't care where you live, but there's enough of you still in Florida that you ought to be part of the alumni association, not just when they're doing a tailgate party or something. You ought to be there really affecting change in the community. Are you doing that? So until we start doing our part, people should just shut up.
All right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Final comments. We have Cox Entertainments.
Yes. Cox and Charter merged
with Charter. Real Django says,
God.
and then
are you serious?
And then
that means they're gonna have a monopoly. There's gonna be 2 monopolies in the state. Well, 3. Yeah. Frontier, Xfinity, and Cox Charter.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
That the 47 way, Aisha, put the people to head institutions that aren't qualified. He also says that he corrected that. So Regina says, make the endowment part of the focus in order to push back on her. And Real Django puts a thumbs up. Ladies, thank you for taking on that last topic, because I thought definitely it's in Dr. Tachi's homeland. Where she lives.
Yes.
Where she lives. Live land, not homeland, live land. So I want to say thank you. We went long, but we appreciate both you being on. I'm going to ask anyone who's watching on YouTube live right now, quick interactive thing. If you're watching on the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube channel right now, please rate this conversation from 1 to 5. All you have to do is put 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter, 4, enter, 5, enter. 1 means it wasn't that great, and all the way up. All right, so people are voting already. Love it. As we are doing that, See, we see automatic. People are giving their input. Love that. All right. We'll give a little bit more before you leave. As always, want to say thank you to and everyone's giving it 5. So beautiful. Regina says, thank you. Real Django goes, love it. All right. Jen, of course, the first lady of Primetime Saturday. Great show as always. Thank you, Jen Myers. And everyone's voting 100%. All right. We want to say thank you to the ladies as always, giving the most important thing, their time, to us. So first things first, we want to say LaLa's website. That's where you go check her. Let's Speak She's Better by next week. She's totally lost her voice, not only for speaking, but she's also a fantastic singer. So we need to have her voice.
Well, that's why she's on phone rest. But she's better. She was sick last week, but she is feeling better. She is feeling better. Just the voice hasn't come back. But she is back to texting with me and Joe and our.
All right, 100%. And we had her on today, so the best place to get a hold of Dr. Tachi.
Yeah, Instagram is really great to get a hold of me. I'm there all the time. If you have a question, please feel free to DM me on Instagram, and it's right here.
And don't forget IndieSoup TV.
Yes.
There's a YouTube channel and the website there.
Yes.
Next up, it grows every week. Aisha K Staggers. I know I'm missing something, but so I'm just going to put down what I got. So we're going to do it right here.
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at AK Staggers. On Medium, I'm Aisha K Staggers.medium.com. On Blue Sky, I'm akstaggers.bsky.social. You can, it's not Friends O Media, it's Friendo Media, which is Friendo. Friendo is one word. I'll put it in the thing. I'll put it in
I have Friendo Media. I haven't put it. Oh, Friends. Okay, I got to edit it. Okay, let me edit it. Here, save, there.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's Friendo Media. But the O is small. But yeah, it's friendomedia.com and Substack at Aisha K Staggers. On Friendo Media, I actually have a new piece up that came out yesterday, and it's about it's called Welcome to Corrupticate, what the nation can learn from what we learned about corruption in our government in Connecticut.
Well, it's interesting. Anthony Scaramucci has regarded this with the 47 is calling it the age of corruption.
Well, this is not to make a long story, but my state for a long time was nicknamed Corrupticate.
We'll leave it at that.
Our governor went to prison.
Okay, we'll leave it at that again. All right. Myself, you can get a hold of me at the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram at the drvibeshow.com, X/Twitter at drvibeshow, and email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. I am also on Substack, drvibe.substack.com/subscribe. When I get to it, you'll be able to see replays there. We broadcast live, but we also have to post the replays, and we have a paid feature coming up on Substack. We'll get to that. And Blue Sky at drvibe.bsky.social. All right, my goodness, this is a lot of stuff today. And there's one other thing. You can watch replays of Primetime Saturday with Aisha and LaLa at the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Dr. Vibe Show at the drvibeshow.com. Wow, that was a long show today, but wasn't it good? Wasn't it good? One other thing I'm going to put up, I'm just going to show the results of the poll. It seems that everyone who took time to vote, what did they do? They gave it a 5 out of 5, 100%. That's what I'm talking about. Love it. All right, as we sign off today, the ladies are back. I'm glad to have them back. We'll say this: live your life as a dream. If you can dream, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get strong. I'm going to take them off because they need a break. They need a break. Yeah, there we go. Let's do it this way. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. You know what I forgot to do? This is what I forgot to do. I forgot to say, make sure you do this. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. And also like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms I'm on, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Now we're done. So this is what we do. We're going to click this off here and say, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and always make it better. God bless. Peace to you all. Keep the faith and walk good.
To understand how afraid I am of any member of the rodent family that's down to squirrels and chipmunks. Okay? I cannot stand all members of the rodent family. Rabbits, bunnies, no. What else is going on that day? I mean, is there something we're supposed to be doing?
Why are you going there? Why are you going there? You know I'm going to ask you. It falls the same day as the inauguration of the new president.
The what? Excuse me? I'm sorry?
So in other words, Monday.
So onesies. Now, folks, don't ever think you're going to see us all on a show with onesies on. Don't do that.
You might see me. You might see me.
You'll see me and LaLa because we oftentimes wear ours.